to this session. Hey Cole, nice to see you. Looks like you're hanging out in the BSB, huh? Yeah, the link for this session got a little messed up, so had some technical difficulties there. But hey, the session was short anyway, so we'll now end right on time. Sorry, are you in the silent room? Red zone? Oh, you can't answer because you're in the silent room. That makes sense. Welcome in, everybody. Nice. Okay. We'll get started real soon. Just letting anybody else who just saw the email hop on real quick. Hey, Alexis, welcome in. Hey, Daniel. Hope everyone's been doing good. You enjoyed your poster presentations. Alrighty, is everybody able to see the Ursa Grant screen? Okay, awesome. Joyce will be in charge of the chat and the waiting room, so feel free to leave any questions you have in the chat. Other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Sean. I'm a senior biology major here at Baylor, a biochemistry minor, and we'll basically be talking about Ursa today. So Ursa, what is it? It is the Undergraduate Research and Scholarly Achievement Initiative, and basically it's here to help promote research, specifically undergrad research here at Baylor. We all know that Baylor is trying to get to R1, T1 research status, and so Ursa is a super important part of that initiative. And so essentially you can see here, their mission is basically to support, promote, and enhance research through grants, which we'll talk about later in this session, Scholars Week, which I'll touch on as well, and other resources that they have on their website. And so definitely reach out to their office. They are really into helping students get involved with undergraduate research here at Baylor. And then, so Ursa Scholars Week is one of the events that the Ursa initiative kind of handles. And basically what it is that they have a chance to, our students get a chance to present posters. And so in the springtime, what you'll usually see, if it wasn't COVID times, is that there's posters lining the whole BSB atrium, the sub, library, and all of that. And so there's posters being presented all over campus. Last spring, it was a little different. They did it all virtually, and you can actually still see all of the presentations on their Ursa website. So definitely take a look at those. And essentially, it's a great chance to see the posters and research that students all around campus are doing from all sorts of fields too, not just STEM fields. You'll see all sorts of things from anthropology and things like that. And so definitely check it out. There's lots of awards that can be won, and it's a great way to practice your presentation skills and things like that. Who's involved with Ursa? Dr. Adair is basically the head and director of Ursa. And then Dr. Nolan as well, right there. You can contact her at that email. They're also part of the Office of Engaged Learning. And so if you haven't checked them out before, they are super involved with undergraduate research, specifically the Office of Undergraduate Research headed by Dr. Brooks, you can see in the corner. Dr. Kay, if you've met her, is also in charge of that office and is super great and super fun to learn from. And so one thing that we're going to talk about today, and the main thing that Ursa offers is Ursa Grants. And so these are ways to fund your research. And you might be asking, why do you even need to fund your research? And so just as a little game, feel free to take a look at this first one. So this is an autoclave machine. And in the chat, type in how much you think that costs. It's an autoclave machine used to sterilize things in the lab. Just a wild guess. 50K, it's quite a bit. 15K. Very nice. Billy and Alexis, very close. Daniel, super close. So autoclave is the one that's shown there with the warranty and customer satisfaction guaranteed. That one is $14,000. And so just to kind of keep things sterile in your lab, 14K right there. Next thing we have here is a motorized fluorescent microscope. And I think that helps you see things super clearly. That's the description I have on that. It is the most expensive item on this screen. So how much do y'all think that one is? Ooh, 25K, 50K? Oh, nice. Y'all are getting specific. 51K, 42K. Yeah, Daniel again is on the ball. Sai, very close. It is $45,000 for this microscope. And so if your research kind of focuses it on microscopy and you really need this, you're gonna need 45K to really get that machine. And the last one, this one is a shaker. So it takes the flask and kind of vibrates. So it shakes them, and that's all it does. But it is temperature controlled, and so that could add some value. How much do y'all think it costs? A machine just to shake flask. Temperature controlled, okay. $3K, 20K. All right, 8K. Ooh, get closer. 10K, there we go. Nice, so Luke, Cole, very nice. It is $10,000 for that shaker. So I think you would kind of get that if you were rolling in dough, but not really sure how practical that is for 10K. You could probably get an undergrad to do it for free. But those are kind of the things that research entails and why you might want to get some funding for your research. Hopefully your undergraduate projects don't cost this much, but Ursa does offer some funding to kind of help you along with that. And just to kind of give you some perspective, here are some things that cost around the same amount of money. So you could buy a Tiffany ring, or you could buy a flask shaker. You can buy a Tesla car or a microscope. So just be thinking about those kinds of things as you're pursuing research. But yeah, a little more about the Ursa Grant. So the Ursa Grant is a grant that provides funding for research projects typically done within 1 year. And it's something that your PI, your principal investigator, will apply for, but they'll kind of use it and give it to you to fund whatever project that you want to discover. And so what is it? Again, they are grants that are worth up to $5,000. And so you can use that money for a few different things. And what you have to do is you have to fill out a grant application. And one of the few things that make grant applications successful is if you as the undergraduate are getting a lot of the experience from the project. You're not just doing like one small task, you're actually helping create the project. You're helping to kind of see it through from the beginning to the end. That's kind of like the key that Ursa wants to see when assessing these applications. Again, they do want the project to be achievable in 1 year's time, or at least that's how much they'll fund you for. If the project lasts longer than that, and then you could possibly look into more funding later on or from other resources. And again, Ursa wants all the funding or the majority of it to go to the undergraduate so that it can facilitate their experience and their learning. And then what can it pay for? And so it can pay for materials and supplies. So kind of like what you were seeing on the other slide, you can buy the microscopes that you need for your project. You can buy different pipettes, things like that. Again, it is up to $5,000. So you won't be getting like the crazy like machines that you might need, but you'll get other supplies that you might just need some help funding for. You can also get it for travel. And so if you're going to a conference, not just to attend, but to either present or participate in some type of project or activity, this $5,000 grant can help you with that. So that can help you pay for things like travel, like the plane, the hotel, and things like that. And so don't be afraid to apply for an Ursa grant for travel. One other thing for travel is you can contact the Office of Undergraduate Research. They also help reimburse any type of travel for undergraduate research. So definitely check them out on their website. Again, they're part of the Office of Engaged Learning. And then one last thing that you can use the Ursa grant for is for student wages. And so let's say you're just doing a summer project and typically your PI has you work for free, or you kind of do it on a volunteer basis. If you have a summer where you're staying and you say, you know, I think I might need some help like affording rent to stay here over the summer or things like that, you can apply for the Ursa grant to do that as well. And that is what I did for my project when I applied for an Ursa grant. And so deadline planning, last year, the deadline for Ursa grant was January 24th of 2020. They haven't updated yet for 2021, but I'm assuming it'll be somewhere around that ballpark. Definitely check out their website to kind of get the most up-to-date information there. And then, so what questions should you ask to see if this is a good fit for you? You want to make sure, like, is this a research project that I can kind of complete in about 1 year? You can do most of the planning, like reading on the literature, coming up with methodology beforehand, and then apply for the Ursa grant. That can maybe fit your timeline better. Just kind of see what fits best for you and your project. And then think about like your methodology and why your research is important and why the Ursa committee should kind of fund your project. It is a lot of money, and I'm assuming with COVID, they might have less resources to give out. And so definitely try to be thinking about how your research plays a role in the scientific environment. And then when's a good time to start? Basically just ask your PI, see what they think is a good time for your project. Like if you're in a good spot, again, you can start thinking about your background, methodology, and all that beforehand. And then you can start writing. It takes about a month or two. So December might be a good time if the deadline is like in late January. But you know, definitely assess your project. Again, it's all personal. So see how long you might need. If maybe you're taking classes at the same time, you might need more time, things like that. And what does it require? And so it has a few different sections, and we'll go through each of them. First, there's a non-technical abstract. Then you need to think about kind of the background and the literature that kind of supports your study. And you want to have a few different objectives set out, as well as kind of why it's important, like I mentioned before. Plan of work is kind of just how your study is going to be done. And then you need to have a few other things, such as specific role that your undergrad, that you as the undergrad is going to be doing, and then plans for publication and your references. And so if you take a look at the Ursa grant application, it looks a little bit like this. So again, the principal investigator, the PI, is the one who's actually going to be submitting the application, but most of the time you'll be the one writing all of it. And that way, again, you're doing a lot of the work and getting that experience. So you kind of give it a project period, a title, and the amount requested. You can kind of figure that out. Like if you're doing travel, kind of calculate how much that would cost, and that way the Ursa committee can give that to you in a reasonable amount. If you're doing wages, maybe consider how much you want to be paid, maybe like $10 an hour, $15 an hour, whatever you want to discuss with your PI. And then how much, or like how long you'll be working. So maybe like 80 hours over the summer, 40 hours, and things like that. And so that's kind of the demographic part. Non-technical abstract, so be thinking about how your project can be described in an easy way. And so for the non-technical abstract, think about like explaining your project to someone who doesn't have a background in your field. And then a little bit more on the project narrative, background, and rationale. This is a little where you can go more in depth, but again, you need lots of background information to kind of support your project and help people make sense of why you're doing the project. After that, you want specific objectives. So ones that are really concrete and that you can check off the list, like, did I meet this objective or not? And that'll really help the Ursa committee see what you're trying to accomplish. And then again, potential significance is always important. How does your research contribute to the literature? How is it unique? Things like that. And then just taking a look at plan of work, specific role, and plans for dissemination. You want to have a good timeline. You want to be able to list out the specific roles that each researcher is doing. So like if you have multiple undergraduates on a Ursa grant, you can list all of them out. And then plan how you're going to present those. And then just diving a little deeper into each section. Remember that for the non-technical abstract, the faculty that make up the committee are from the sciences and the humanities and other fields outside of that. So be aware that you don't want to use too much jargon or use things that wouldn't make sense to just a typical reader. These are PhDs, so they'll mostly understand everything. So be aware of that. And then make sure it's persuasive. So each sentence that you write, kind of have it build on like either reasoning or rationale or background as to why you're doing the project. Essentially, you're asking them to support your project. And so kind of think of it as persuasive writing. And then also try to address in your abstract, like what's been done before in the past. So this is going to be information you get from reading the literature. From reading the literature, do you see a main problem that you need to fix? And if so, why should you answer that problem and how are you going to do that? And so those are some things that you keep in mind for the non-technical abstract portion. After that, background and rationale, again, like I said, it's kind of the same idea, but now you're going to expand on each of the points you made in your abstract. Make sure this is one of the larger sections. And then you'll have a lot of the background information from your literature review here. And again, try to be persuasive and highlight whatever gaps there are in the literature and why yours kind of fills in that gap. Specific objectives, again, try to have a long-term goal. And so like maybe not what your project will ultimately accomplish, but what maybe your project helps build upon in the literature. And then you want the short-term goals of what you'll be achieving, like what your project will have complete by the time you're done with your project. Again, you want these to be within achievable within a year. And then you want to explain how you're going to get there. Significance, again, see why your project's important. Don't undersell your research. So, be realistic about, how much your research is going to impact the field. It could provide really good information, or it could, be a little less, major, but you want to be realistic about it as you're writing this section for potential significance. It's easy to go too far. So it's, you might not cure cancer with one research article, but you might, be contributing to that line of work. And then plan of work, here's where you want to make sure you list all of the different techniques, chemicals, any type of program you're using for your project. These will help them kind of get an idea of what you're actually doing. You want a timeline so that they know that if they check in at a certain point of time, you are using the money correctly and in the way that you plan to. And then the last point here is that it's preferred that all the techniques are previously done at Baylor. And so they're not new. And what that's trying to say is basically the Ursa committee just wants to make sure that you're getting the most out of these projects. And so if a technique has already been done, you likely have a mentor or someone who can help you out with it. And so you'll be able to get more out of that process rather than trying to learn it from the bottom ground up. There's that. And then when you fill out the specific role of the undergraduate, you want to be specific on what you'll be doing and what the PI will be doing and what other students in your project might be doing. So be aware of that and be aware of like how you fit into the project. And again, Ursa is focusing on the undergrad experience, so they want to make sure that you're also doing a major part with the research. Plans for publication. In this, as you fill out your application, be looking for different journals that might really fit your research project. Quick Google search can tell you all of the different ones that might be super relevant in your field. One other thing is that you can present the research that you do with the grant. And so one of the things I did with my project is I was able to go to a national conference and present it with other people in that field. And so that's obviously a fun opportunity and something you can easily put on a CV, resume, kind of help you out with any of your future goals. And then undergrad conferences are also an option there. So any of the research projects you do with an Ursa grant would apply for these kinds of conferences as well. And so in summary, be very specific when you're doing your different sections. Include names of conferences, names of journals, include what you're going to be doing at each point in time with the project, and also include kind of like what you bring to the project, why you're qualified to be heading the project and things like that, and be persuasive. You are trying to get funding for the project, and so make it something interesting, something fun. Like if you were a committee member, would you want to fund this project? And so don't repeat yourself and things like that. And so that's kind of an overview of the Ursa grant application process and a few of the things that the Ursa office offers. Do y'all have any questions about any portion of the application, of what Burst offers, what Ursa offers, things like that? Yeah, Sai.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Cole.
wondering, so you have to be in research in order to start applying for an Ursa?
I I would believe so. I think you could start talking to a professor and then in that discussion, maybe bring up the possibility of applying for an Ursa grant.
Mhm.
But like I mentioned, it is the PI, the principal investigator, who is submitting the application. And so you wouldn't be able to personally submit it yourself.
Right.
So yeah, I think you would need some kind of connection with the professor to get that started.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Sai, yeah, I'll send out the slides afterwards. I think we'll probably send out most of the slides in a big burst email, but if not, we'll also send this out separately. Is this grant available for international students? That's a good question. I would think so, but I would have to check on that for you. I know for wages, it might be a little different because you do have to go through typical like citizenship questions. So that might be different. But maybe for travel and for supplies and things like that, it might be a lot more easy to get the grant for that. But I can check on that for you and I'll send you an email as well. Good question. All right, and then so feel free, I'll be here for another few minutes. But if y'all have any further questions, feel free to type them, or here's the sign-in link so you can go on to your next session after this. And remember, there's a 10-minute break, so feel free to head out, take a break, stretch your legs. And thanks for coming.